Yeah, it's been 80 years since the first meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were called the Bretton Woods institutions set up at the end of the Second World War. Now, the 2024 annual meetings of the two institutions taking place this week amid turmoil, global war, terror, geopolitics and climate change, as well as technological innovation. Arise News is covering all the angles to this anniversary edition of the World Bank IMF Summit. And Rotus Oddiri, my colleague, and the anchor of Global Business Report, is in the middle of it all right there in Washington, D.C. Great to get into the RS exchange tonight. Rotus, a good afternoon to you out there at the street corner of the World Bank IMF headquarters, just the right spot on the doorsteps of these two institutions. So, thank you so much. What are the curtain-raising developments you're following today right there in this place in the World Bank IMF? Talk to me.
Good to be with you, Boston. Yeah, we're at 19th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. If you actually go further down, you actually hit the White House. This is 1900 Pennsylvania Avenue. You go to 1600, you get to the gates of the White House, a big tourist attraction there. As far as curtain raisers, there's been a lot going on today. Kristalina Georgieva kicked things off talking about women in leadership and power with an author of a number of books on female leadership. Then after that, in fact, going on right now, is what the IMF calls the analytical corner. So there are a number of sessions. The first one that's going on right now is talking about the transmission of U.S. monetary policy into sectors of the U.S. economy, like the impact on banking, demand for loans, vehicle loans, mortgages, and so on and so forth. The Western Hemisphere Department and the Research Department is taking care of that. After that, there's going to be a session still on the analytical corner. The Fiscal Affairs Department at the IMF is going to be looking at the social safety nets and the digital revolution, basically being able to use technology to be able to get funds over to people who need it the most. After that, you're going to have the Central Asia and Middle East Department that is going to be looking at the nexus between climate change and monetary policy with Central Asia and the Middle East as an example. And the one I'm really looking forward to is the Africa Department of the IMF. They will be looking at, in another session on the analytical corner, a topic called "The Clock is Ticking," the need to provide jobs to African youth. So a whole lot for the curtain raiser today.
You got a job, Rotus, not one of those African youths. But we need jobs for African youths, by the way. And I'm sure you're not going to miss that, by the way, because it's very important. A conversation we need to have. But again, what else is grabbing your attention in terms of the issues and the sessions? This is a week long, so it's going to be a whole lot of sessions in and out, several sessions happening at the same time. So how do you intend to walk through all of this? What will be some of the key points you want to listen in? I'm sure technology is on the agenda. I'm sure the whole issue around debts will be there. Fiscal sustainability, the problems of not just creating jobs in Africa, but having what you call the right fiscal balance. The governors will be meeting, central bank governors, that is, finance ministers. So you've got yourself a whole lot.
Indeed. I mean, the delegation from Nigeria is here. So, you know, Olayemi Cardoso, CBN governor, he's been a topic of conversation in terms of him sticking to his path, sticking to his mandate in trying to rein in inflation in Nigeria, at least on his monetary policy side of the equation. As you have pointed out a lot of times on the Arise Exchange, there's a fiscal side to it as well. So that's being discussed, as well as other central banks across the world. There, of course, there's climate change. We saw protesters that were here at the front of the building talking about fossil fuels and how fossil fuels have to be eliminated. So the climate is going to be very much a discussion that's going on here as well. And as you mentioned, debt. Kristalina Georgieva, ahead of the IMF World Bank meetings, talked about the fact that we shouldn't be celebrating yet that inflation is decelerating in certain regions because debt is still very high and growth is low. And both you've talked about it, you've analyzed this a lot, the impact on emerging markets, the fact that a lot of this debt is foreign debts that they do not, US dollars are not something a lot of countries produce themselves unless they're selling commodities. So that as well is very much. And then both in poverty and income inequality, you know, and I know South Africa, you know, has a lot of income inequality. The US, other countries, that of course is going to be on the menu as well this week. So a lot to discuss.
A lot to discuss in Washington. So I'm trying to understand whether it's by design or by accident that the BRICS Summit in Russia will be hanging over the Washington meetings like a huge cloud. Is the world getting more polarized here, you folks in Washington, while some folks gather together in Russia to hold their own BRICS Summit? Briefly.
The polarization is the word. I mean, you know, the BRICS folks have talked about, of course, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa have talked about, you know, getting away from the US dollar. I mean, by volumes, the US dollar is still the, you know, premier currency that's used, but BRICS wants to get away from that. And there is, of course, a war that is going on. I mean, by February of next year, the Russia invasion of Ukraine will be going on, will be 3 years old. And of course, Vladimir Putin is trying to use this to defy the West. Polarization is in the elections that are going to be coming up in less than 2 weeks to find out who is going to be the occupant of the White House down on Pennsylvania Avenue. So, yes, and of course, the triggers that are also part of the, you know, what is making a lot of folks nervous as far as the global economy is geopolitical tension. So not just Russia, Ukraine, you talk about polarization, also Israel, Gaza, and what that is doing to, you know, the wider economy, and also China tensions with Taiwan. So it's all happening, Bosin, as you pointed out several times.
Okay, Rotus, the elections will be very, very key. If I have my way, you're going to move down to Pennsylvania Avenue in 15 days and cover the economics of the elections for us there in Washington. Very important, who occupies the White House for Africa. Thank you so much. You've got yourself a whole lot more to do from Washington this week at the World Bank. Quite a busy week ahead for you. Thank you. We appreciate it. Have a great day.